Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar, Introduction to JIRA. We're recording this session and we'll submit a link to the recording in a couple days. Just as a reminder, we've got a webinar coming up in February again, the JIRA Fundamentals Primer, which is essentially a synopsis of our training JIRA Fundamentals. Also, we'll be taking questions. There's a Q&A button at the upper center of the application that you got there. We can submit questions so that we can get those together. And then in the last 10 minutes of the webinar, we'll cover questions and work through those. So I'd like to start with an introduction of Praecipio Consulting, so you know who's on the call and who's going to be providing the webinar. Christopher Pepe is going to run through the actual introduction to JIRA. He's our head of Atlassian practice and is quite the Atlassian guru. He's been working with JIRA since 2004 and all the other products since then. So he's a dragon slayer and ninja. So I'm also here, Christian Lane. I'm one of the other partners at Praecipio. And also Shayla Sanders here. She's been helping coordinate and get the webinar together. She's helps us out with business development. So we're an Atlassian expert, which means that we do a whole series of things in the Atlassian space. We've been Atlassian experts for about 5 years, and we're about 95% focused on the Atlassian product suite. We spend a lot of our time helping our clients out with Atlassian product implementations. Our clients range from 20-person companies to Fortune 20 type companies across a whole host of industries, including technology, automotive, insurance, banking and finance, medical and pharmaceuticals, telephony, security, and gaming. We take a very very process-centric approach in delivering the technology solutions that we implement. Now, whether the processes are traditional business process management, ITSM based on IDLE, or SDLC type implementations, we leverage the Atlassian product suite very effectively to do these kinds of process improvements. As Atlassian experts, we help out with licensing, implementing solutions, integration, plugin development, upgrades, maintenance. We do a lot of training, which is not on this slide, but managed services and hosting as well. So Atlassian is really pushing software engineering really far. And they've really created some really great products that really facilitate collaboration, thought and idea gathering, as well as the actual efforts to implement and produce really quality software. But as a result of building really great models for software development, they've built really great products and models for implementing and delivering business processes. You will find that Atlassian is everywhere because software is everywhere. There are obvious companies that develop software, and even the largest and greatest of non-software companies develop and build a lot of software, and they're all using the Atlassian product suite. So Atlassian's been doing really well. It's because they have a great vision and the ability to execute, which is why they're in the upper right-hand quadrant of the magic quadrant that we like to look at from Gartner. So Christopher's going to talk more about JIRA. He's going to handle a handful of different things in that area. Go ahead, Christopher. Thanks so much.
Right. So as Christian's been alluding to, we do a lot of process-centric work. And that's part of why we like JIRA so much. It has a really robust workflow engine that we use to help people facilitate processes. So anyone can really take JIRA, take their processes, break them down into the workflow, and then put it into JIRA. Then you have metrics that you can capture. You have reportability, you have traceability. It gives you a nice audit trail, as well as helping people in their day-to-day to actually move their items through its workflow. It's a really generic tool, so originally designed for software development, but we can really use it to track just about anything. So anything that has a life cycle fits into JIRA very well. JIRA is kind of the flagship of the Atlassian suite. It sits kind of right in the center, and everything connects into it. All of these points that are on this slide are pretty true of all of the Atlassian products, but JIRA is kind of the anchor that holds the whole enterprise together. So JIRA already has nice deep integrations with all of the other Atlassian products, as well as a lot of the other popular tools that people use, like Salesforce, Quality Center, all these other kind of other large applications that people use. Atlassian's moved entirely to REST APIs. They still have some older ones that they're keeping going for right now, but everything's going to go to REST APIs, and it's getting to the point where pretty much you can do anything remotely that you can do within the application. So you can build really rich integrations into any system. And then the marketplace is a place for add-ons that are either free or commercial that will allow you to extend JIRA in other ways. You can add additional custom fields, additional reports, connect into other applications, a whole host of other add-ons that help tailor JIRA to what your enterprise is trying to do. I just wanted to go over a little bit of the anatomy of JIRA before we jump into it, and that way we can just move through the kind of demo portion a little bit more smoothly. So a lot of the terms that you're going to see are going to be kind of software development centric, but they don't necessarily have to be, and we can really fit a variety of things into it. The example we're going to work through is a service desk, and it fits very well into JIRA, but you could be a digital ad agency and just as effectively use JIRA. So the highest level kind of organizational unit is called a project. And what you put in a project is really up to you. We have a service desk. That's one of our projects. If you're a software development company, oftentimes one of your products is a project. And if you have kind of a much bigger platform, you may have a number of projects for each of the components that make up your platform. And then the platform itself you can track as well. One of the nice things about JIRA is that we can report across all of the different projects that we have. So as long as we set them up in an intelligent way to begin with, it's very easy to keep your entire platform in sync, yet let each of the individual components have their own life cycles as well. Within a project, we have any number of issue types. So we're going to look at a service desk, so it'll be things like a password reset, an incident, just a generic task, things like that. And then each of those issue types within the project can have its own workflow. So for an incident, you may want to work through one particular workflow, whereas a task may be just a simple open-close workflow. Then associated with each of those issues within the project, we have a number of different data points, a number of different metrics that we want to collect. So JIRA has a number of built-in system fields, as well as the base types to build your own custom fields. So really any field type you've ever seen out on the internet, if it's a text input, a big text box, a single select, a multi-select, kind of all of those input fields that you have, you can make your own custom fields with whatever values you want in each of those field types. Permissions and notifications are also two places where JIRA kind of excels over other issue tracking systems that we've used in the past. JIRA has a very fine-grained permission scheme, so you can really control with a high degree what people are able to do and what they're not able to do in a project. So you can have different roles. You have your typical users, which are maybe just submitting tickets, maybe editing their own tickets and commenting on them. Then you have your actual operators that are taking the tickets, moving them through their life cycle, and we can control all of those things. And then if you just want to have a very wide open project, it's also very easy to just set up the project so everybody can kind of do everything. So you have as much control as you want, but it's not cumbersome to set up. Similarly with notifications, every time something happens in JIRA, when someone creates an issue, when they comment on it, when they move it through its life cycle, if they edit it, all of those things are potentially going to generate a notification. And we build out these notification schemes so that people are kept aware of what's going on in JIRA, but we can make it as noisy or as quiet as it needs to be so that it doesn't get in your way. It just gives you the right amount of communication. The states and tracking piece is as you're moving through your workflow is essentially a big state diagram. So as you move through your workflow, you move from state to state. And how you get from one state to the next is via a transition. And we have a lot of different things that we can do in a transition, like control who can make that transition, determine what happens after that transition occurs. So if we want to integrate to another system, we can automatically update an external system by noticing that we took a particular route from one state to another state, and so on. And then we can link issues together via any sort of generic link, like two tickets may duplicate each other, or they may just relate to each other, or they may have some other relationship. And we can link those two tickets together, and we get this reciprocal relationship between the two. So now we know that those two tickets are important to each other for whatever reason. Kind of a special case of that is also subtasks. So when we create an issue in JIRA, we can create subtasks off of that as well. So if we have a large work item, we can create a number of subtasks, assign those out to different people, and have different people working on smaller parts of this larger task. And that's kind of a special case of links, whereas the general link is a more generic relationship between two issues. A relatively new feature in JIRA is also the ability to link to, it really boils down to anything with a URL, but to be able to link to another Confluence page, to be able to link to a document within SharePoint, really anything that has a unique URL you can link directly to. So you can have a ticket that has relationships with external systems, other JIRA systems, other Atlassian products, or whatever other systems you happen to use in your enterprise. So we're going to create issues. We're going to move them through their workflow. Those are our actual work items. That's kind of the minutia of what's happening day to day. From a managerial standpoint, we want to be able to kind of roll all that information up and get an idea of what's going on kind of from 10,000 feet. And maybe you want to know 5,000 and 2,000 feet as well. So you can get a look at right at ground level and then at kind of every other level from there. You can just continue to roll things up and aggregate information. The primary way that we do that is by creating what are called filters, and they do just what you would think that they do. They filter out all of the stuff you don't care about and just give you a set of issues that you're particularly interested in at that moment. So we're going to create a filter. One of the things we can do is subscribe to it. So it'll send us an email on some regular basis. The other thing that we can do is then embed them into gadgets on our dashboard or create reports out of them. So we're going to create a filter and we'll create a dashboard, or we'll at least look at those two things as well. All right, I'm going to switch over to JIRA. Okay, so now we've logged into JIRA. We're looking at our dashboard here. We're actually going to jump away from this and we'll come back to it at the end because I want to start with issues. So we have our create issue button, which is always up here in the corner. You can also use keyboard shortcuts. If you notice the tooltip that pops up, it says that if you type C, that'll allow you to create an issue. So I just typed C. This brings up the new create issue dialog. You can see that we have a number of different projects in here. And then within each project, we have a number of different issue types. So we can decide on a project by project basis which issue types are going to be valid for that project. This is a service desk, so we have service desk type issue types. We have incidents and password resets and problems. So let's create a password reset. Now, all of these different issue types that we have in here have this exact same screen, and it has a lot more fields in it than you would actually want in a kind of a real service desk. We just leave them in there to highlight that we can have custom fields, we can have a lot of different fields, we can have additional tabs with other fields on them as well. And incidentally, for each of these different issue types, we could have different screens that are presented to the users. So not only can they go through different workflows, but we can gather different metrics on each of them. So in standard internet lingo, we've got little red asterisks everywhere that we have a required field. So our summary is a short descriptive summary of what this issue is about. What does someone actually need? And then the description, we can be as verbose as we want. In this case, I don't really need to say anything else. That should be pretty self-explanatory, so I'm going to leave it. We can optionally have users pick their priority. If I can't log into my computer, that's a pretty big problem. So I'm going to call that a blocker. We can set a due date. Optionally, you can have your users just report issues, or you can let them fill in all this information and have the actual operator fill this stuff in. We have components, which are sort of kind of like smaller buckets within the project itself. So it allows you to break down the project into smaller units. So if you put your entire platform into a JIRA project, then you can use components for each of the different subsystems within your platform. And then if there's versions associated with it, we can do versions as well. When I click on the assignee or the reporter or any of the user selector boxes, JIRA knows I'm looking for users, and it's going to try to help me figure out what valid users are. As I start typing, it's going to give me a set of users that match what I've typed so far. So there's kind of a lot of smart input fields within JIRA. Here I'll assign this to Christian, and I'll stay the reporter. We can put time estimates on it. So if time tracking is something that you need, either for to bill clients out or just to actually track the amount of time that you're spending on work, You can put in original estimates and then log work against the tickets as you work them through their workflow. Then you can look at things like how good are we at estimating? Are we always overestimating or underestimating how long it takes us to actually do things? And that can help you get more work done or hit your deadlines more effectively. So time tracking is a really nice tool in the event that you want to use it. I also have this create another button here. So I'm going to do that just to show you what happens. We create this ticket. My new ticket's created. My summary is reset, but everything else will remain the same. You see it's a blocker. It's still assigned to Christian. I'm going to uncheck this create another box because I'm done creating new tickets. I want to pull up this other ticket as well because this has the actual workflow diagram in it, and I want to show you what our workflow looks like. For this particular project, we have taken an idle-based process and modified it a little bit so that we can handle incident management. And that's the workflow that you're going to see in here. So here we have a new ticket. Oh, no, I jumped over. This is our workflow. So we're going to have a new request, which is the ticket that we just created. So we'll start off in this new state. And then from there, we can either cancel it or we can assign it to somebody by following each of these transitions. And then from assigned, we can move it into in progress, we can cancel it, or we can send it back to new. That transition is not shown on here, but you'll see that in the workflow itself. And then from in progress, similarly, we can cancel it. We can put it on hold if we're being blocked, either internally or externally. If we need more information from the client or if something internally is stopping us from doing any work, we can put it on hold. That allows us to take the time that the ticket spends on hold and subtract it out of the SLA, depending on how your SLA works. But it just gives you another metric to know how long is a ticket actually taking to be worked and how long is someone actively working on it. And then it can be resolved and either closed or reopened. And rework is a very expensive thing, so we want to be able to know anytime a ticket gets reopened and reworked again. And then we want to go analyze, is there something wrong with our process or what's causing these tickets to be reworked in the first place? If we can figure out why that is and eliminate that, that'll save us a lot of time and money. So that's the workflow that we're going to look at. Here we're starting off with the ticket that we just created, and it starts off in the new state. So the very first thing I can do is assign it by clicking on this button. And I'm actually going to change it from Christian to Joseph. He's going to need to go and work on this ticket. In this case, I've switched from the person that submitted the ticket. Now I'm playing more of a triage role. So I'm taking all the different items that are in our queue, and I'm assigning them off to people to actually work on them. Now that this ticket's been assigned to Joseph, he would come in and start progress on it. Now he's going to go off and reset this person's password. So whatever system he has to do that in. If the system is down and that's why it's not working, he can put the ticket on hold and note that. Or he can go and reset the password and then resolve it. So here if we go to put it on hold, you'll notice now we're just asking for a comment versus when we assigned it, it was asking for an assignee and a comment. And then when we resolve this ticket, it's going to ask us for a lot more information. So this is one of the other nice things about JIRA is that as you move through your workflow, you can pick up additional metrics. So a lot of times in your processes, you don't necessarily know something when you create the ticket, but you'll know it halfway through. Or if you're doing some testing or something like that, you'll have test cases or other documentation that gets developed as an entity is moving through its life cycle. So you can prompt the user for all of those things, and they can attach files and they can enter in information so that as you move through your life cycle, all of the relevant information gets created, attached back to the ticket, and then you have an audit trail. So here I will resolve this as fixed. And now this ticket has been resolved. Now our status is resolved and our resolution is fixed. If we come down here into the activity stream, we can see the comments that we made as we created the ticket and as we moved it through its life cycle. As with a number of different people working on this ticket, we can have dialogues back and forth. We can discuss anything we need to discuss so that the work itself can move forward. We also have this history, which is sort of a low-level audit trail. You don't necessarily use this on a day-to-day basis, but it has everything that's ever happened to this ticket. So it was created, and here we move the status from new to assigned, and we change the assignee from Christian to Joseph. So you can see everything that happens to a ticket as it moves through its life cycle. And that's really useful a lot of times to figure out, well, this thing that we did 6 months ago, what actually happened, and what was the progression of things that led up to the result we ended at. The activity stream will show up in a number of places in JIRA, and this is kind of just a prettier version of the history, and we'll look at it on the dashboard. Also, with the anatomy of the ticket, there's a number of other things that we can do. We can share this, and that'll allow us to send an email to somebody else who's not necessarily a direct participant in the ticket and say, hey, I think you would be interested in this. Come, please take a look at this ticket. We need your input. As a user, I can come in and watch this ticket as well. So even if I'm not the assignee or the reporter, I can come and watch the ticket and still get email notifications to see what's going on. You may have noticed that as I move around and I hover over fields, that a little edit box pops up. Everything in JIRA is inline editable. So you can come in and modify a ticket inline without having to actually edit it and look at all the different fields. If we want to update a number of things, we can click on the edit button, and that will bring up a screen similar to our create screen, where we can come through and update any of these fields that need to be updated. Here you can see the activity stream for this particular ticket. The activity stream we see on the dashboard will aggregate all of this information together, and you'll see who's doing what in different places within JIRA, what tickets they're working on, and what they're actually doing on those tickets. So this is kind of a prettier, more presentable view. All right, so now let's take a look at searching for issues. So we've seen creating issues, moving them through their workflow. Actually, just before we move on, let me just mention this actions. So these are all the other things that you can also, actions you can take on a ticket. So we can attach files or screenshots and stop and start watching. We can create subtasks or move tickets from and to subtasks, move them between projects. We can link them together as well, and that was the one that we were talking about before, and I kind of wanted to show you that. So the link box that comes up, whatever systems you happen to have integrated into JIRA will show up in here. So here we have JIRA and we have Confluence, and then we just have generic web links. So like I said, anything with a unique URL, you can link directly to it. You can also link to other JIRA issues or to a Confluence page. Here you see our issue link showed up, and it's just a link to our Praecipio website. So if we click on that, that'll take you over to our website. If it was a link to another issue, it would take you to that issue. All right. So another interesting way of being able to collect information for what you've seen so far, you have to actually log into JIRA and come and click on the Create Issue button. There's also a number of other integration points. So you can use email. You can have an email box that's dedicated purely to JIRA. So people can send email to that box. It'll create a ticket. They can also then get comments or create comments on the tickets, which is nice because JIRA is sending out these notifications anyway saying this ticket was created and assigned to you. Then people can just reply back to those emails and create comments on those tickets. And then with more advanced mail handlers, they can even move the ticket through their workflow and update fields and do other things like that. For anonymous feedback, there's also a plugin called the Issue Collector, which is something that Atlassian wrote just in their free time because they thought it would be a neat thing, and it turned out to be very useful and people love it. So it's integrated into all the products. It's actually built right into JIRA right here. This got feedback link is actually the issue collector. And if I click on that, it's going to pull up a form for me. So what you can do with the issue collector is you install it in JIRA and you configure it, and it just spits out a little bit of JavaScript. And then you take that JavaScript and embed it into any web page, and it puts a little button that looks similar to this. Obviously, you can brand this button and make it look your own, make it act and behave however you want it to. You can also make this form look however you want it to look. For the got feedback one, this is what Atlassian has implemented. So they have this hooked up to one of their instances of JIRA. So here we can come in and we can rate this particular page. What do you like? What needs to be improved? So give us some feedback, maybe add an attachment, maybe add your name. And then when you submit that, what will actually happen is this will go into Atlassian's instance of JIRA, create a ticket there. It's going to capture some metrics on me, like what browser I'm using and things like that, along with all of the other input that I put in here. And it's going to create a ticket and give them some information as to how they can get back to me as well. So within your own enterprise, within any of your websites, you can embed these issue collectors so that anonymous users on the internet or named users within your enterprise can give you specific feedback on either your website or any other thing that they're having trouble with. This is one of Atlassian's kind of bigger success stories to come out of their this little fun development program that they run where they let people write whatever they want. But what they found was that this really removed the pain of submitting feedback, because in the old days what you'd have to do is go to jira.atlassian.com, create an account, log in, create a ticket, wait for somebody to actually acknowledge that ticket and go back and forth with them. Now within seconds you can just click on a button, give them some feedback, and go back to your life. They get really valuable feedback, or in this case you would get really valuable feedback from your users. It's pain-free and it's an easy way to integrate into any of your other systems. So now let's search for issues. So we've created a handful of issues. Now let's go figure out how do we actually track them and what might be some useful cases. There's actually two main ways of searching, or at least this search tool has a simple and an advanced mode. And then, as I mentioned, there's a slightly newer version of JIRA that's out, and it has a kind of easier to use interface for building these advanced queries. So in the simple form, we just fill out this form right here. So we can put in a query like test or something along those lines. We can limit it to individual projects, individual issue types. I won't go through all the options because there's a ton of them, but for the issue attributes, like what status is it and all of the different custom fields that are associated with the ticket, we can go in and pick specific values for each of those things to really dial in what is it that we're looking for. And here, let's do password resets. So we're just going to look for all the password resets. This is going to go into the JIRA database, pull back all that information, and load it up into the issue navigator. Once we have these result sets back, we can do a number of different things with them. So here we can see there are 4 password reset issues. If we look at their statuses, we can see this one's already done. Here we have a new one that hasn't been addressed yet. This one's on hold, so someone's being blocked for some reason. We don't necessarily know why. And then this one's been closed. Again, we can share it, so I can send off an email. So I can send an email to Christian. So I can ask him for help. I need someone to go address these password resets. Now that'll send an email to Christian, and it'll have a link in it. When he clicks on it, it'll take him directly to this exact same result set. As long as he has permission to see all that thing. We talked about permissions before. We can show and hide anything we choose. We also have the ability to put this into a printable form if you wanted to print out a report. The XML View is really mainly useful for integrating into other systems, but you have access to the raw XML document that creates this page. The RSS reader can also be useful if you have any sort of, like a big wallboard or a computer monitor up on the wall to show what's going on in the world. You can take this RSS feed of the issues or the comments, sort of like an activity stream, and see what's going on in the issues and display that. Probably the most common thing that people will do is use this Excel export. You can either get all of the fields or just the fields that are currently shown. So we have a number of different columns that are shown here. There's also a number of other fields that are associated with these tickets that aren't necessarily displayed. But we can export all of that to Excel, perhaps do a little bit of data massaging, or we need to send it off to somebody else. So we can generate this report as an Excel document and email that off to someone who maybe doesn't have access to JIRA. We can also pull up a bunch of different charts or directly embed this into our dashboard. We're going to do it a little bit more manually, but you have those options. We can also bulk change all 4 of these issues. So So here I can come in, I can select some or all of these ones. And then I can either edit them and go in and change some attributes. Maybe I just want to assign them all to myself. I can move them to a different project. I can transition them through their workflow. So I just want to go and close all of these tickets out because maybe they're already all done. And I just need to come in and clean them out. And if you have permission, then you can go in and delete them as well. In general, we don't usually delete things out of JIRA just because it is a real delete. Once you've deleted something, it's really gone forever. And a lot of what we're doing is process control and auditability sort of things. So we don't really want to delete anything. But you certainly can if you want to. If I click on the advanced link right here, this is going to bring me to the JQL editor. There's this little syntax help button that'll tell you all about JQL, everything that there is to do with it. We're just going to work a simple example. So you can see it already took the query that I had built before where the issue type is password reset, and it built out that bit of the query for me. So now that I have that condition, or that clause, I'm just going to and or it together with other ones to generate the filter that I want. So here I'm going to say and JQL is smart enough to know, all right, I've already built out that entire clause. So now I need to either and it or it with something, or use an order by clause to set the order of the issues. So I'm going to do and. Now that I've done and, it knows that, all right, I need a field or something like that to operate on. So let's go with the resolution is not empty. So that should give me all the tickets that are open, that are password reset tickets. So in this case, I don't care about tickets that have already been completed because that's work that's done. That's not something that I really need to pay attention to. Oops. Sorry, I meant is empty. One of the nice things about JQL is that even when you make a mistake and you get the exact opposite logic of what you want, it's pretty quick and easy to go in and modify it. You can also start with just a base idea and continue to drill down farther and farther into your information. So if we did the issue type as password reset and we got 2,000 tickets back, we could say, okay, well, what's the next important metric? And then just start anding those things on until you get down to exactly the data set that you're looking for. So here now we've built a really simple query that gives me all of our open password resets. And we'll order it by priority. It already is ordered by priority, but and we can do ascending and descending on this. It's going to automatically default to descending, but we could explicitly choose that. So now we have by most important at the top, we have a list of all of our password resets that need to be done. So what I can do is now save this filter. So I don't need to click there. I'm going to save this filter. I'm going to give it a name so I know what it's referring to, and a description so that people know when they look at this filter what it is they're looking at. I have it favorited, so it's going to be one of my favorite filters. I can choose to share it with everyone or some group of people. I'm just going to share it with everyone for simplicity. And we'll save it. So now we have that filter saved. And that I have a lot of favorite filters. It would show up in this list if I didn't have quite so many. I'd have to click on this more link in order to actually be able to see it because I have so many favorite filters. But now that we have that saved as a filter, other people can subscribe to it and they can do whatever they want with it. Or we can take it and we can embed it in our dashboard, which is what we're going to do now. These are sort of little report portals that show you a view of what's going on in JIRA. Each of these little blocks that's in here, they're called gadgets. They're actually an open standard. It's called OpenSocial, and kind of all the big websites out there use it. So you can take an OpenSocial gadget and embed it into your JIRA web page and use that to integrate other systems into it. It also means that you can write OpenSocial gadgets and embed them into JIRA as well. These are some of the easiest add-ons to write for JIRA. So here we have a pie chart. Here's a graph of our resolution time, how long it takes us to resolve tickets. And then this one's This one's a filter result. So we create a filter and it just shows us the raw results, the tickets themselves. And we can pick which columns show up or just take the default ones. So with all these different things, we can get an idea of what's going on within JIRA. So here we're looking at a particular filter we created called JQL Training Backlog. And we're looking at the status of the tickets in that. So we're looking at what's the distribution of the tickets throughout their workflow. And you can see the vast majority of them, 2/3 of them, are in the new status. There's a handful that are in progress and some are open. And arguably open and new are really the same status. They're just two different workflows. Same thing with resolution time. You can look at how quickly are we actually resolving tickets in our service desk project. Along the side here, we have a number of different tabs. Each of these things is a different dashboard. So we can create a number of different dashboards, or we can subscribe to dashboards that somebody else created, and that will give us different views into the system, so we can see what's going on at different levels within JIRA. Here you can see we have a number of different filter results ones, a pie chart, a heat map. These guys will load in a minute. All of this stuff is asynchronous, so everything is just automatically loading on its own. The other thing is that each of these gadgets will automatically refresh themselves. It's one of the parameters that you set in it when you configure the gadget in the first place, is how often do you want it to refresh itself. So again, I was talking about that wall board. If you just have a big monitor up on the wall that's showing people what's going on in JIRA, if you have it displaying a dashboard, each of these gadgets will automatically update themselves. So as things are changing in JIRA, they'll be accurately reflected in the dashboard. A couple other notes on it. There's a number of different layouts. You can do one giant column, 2 even ones, a 1/3, 2/3, or up to 3 columns. So you can change the amount of space that's allocated to each of these columns. And we can add gadgets. So we'll add a filter results here to use the filter that we just created. Again, you see as I type, it's pulling up all the different filters that match whatever I typed. So here I just changed it to the password resets filter that we just created a few minutes ago. We can limit the number of results that are shown. Again, we can pick whatever columns we want. We'll just let it default. And we can set the refresh time, so it'll automatically refresh itself at a different interval. So that really shows the majority of the things that we wanted to demo to you today. There really are a lot of other points within JIRA that we could cover, but I wanted to make sure we had a little bit of time for your questions if you had any. So if there's anything else you wanted to see, or if there's any specific questions you had, please feel free to ask them.
Hey, Chris, we've got one question actually from Alfonso. Have you used Greenhopper in any of your installations, and what's its best use?
It's a great question. Greenhopper is actually probably one of our favorite add-ons for JIRA, and since we have a few minutes, I will show it to you. There's nothing that you can do within Greenhopper that you can't do within JIRA. It honors all of your permissions. It honors all of your workflows, and it just gives you a nice kind of clickable interface, and it gives you an idea of what's going on. So the first thing that you do is you decide, what set of issues you want to be in your rapid board. Once you have that, you map the columns within the rapid board to your workflow. So in this case, we just have a to-do column, and that's our backlog, our ready to review on this particular board. So anything that's kind of to do, we work on it, then we move it to ready for review, and it gets reviewed. Then once it's reviewed, it's done. And I think that the workflow on this example, actually it does work. Okay, good. So you can see as I pick up this ticket, the to-do and done columns both highlight in blue. That means that those are both valid places I can go with this ticket. There's a transition that goes from ready to review to to-do. So I can move it back over to to-do, and that lights up green. If I drop it, that's where it's going to go to. Now in this issue's workflow, in order to go from that ready to review state to go back to the open state, I need to give it a comment. So again, it's honoring the JIRA workflow. But it's giving me a nice clickable interface that makes it easy for me to not only move tickets around, but also have this nice visual presentation of what's going on. The way I have this one set up is it's breaking out all of our different tickets by assignee. So here, these are called swim lanes. Here we have a swim lane for Christian with all of his tickets. Here we have a swim lane for me with all of my tickets. I have a lot of them. And then Joseph has one as well for all of his tickets. We also have these quick buttons across the top. All of this stuff is configurable, and configuring the rapid board is a very quick and easy thing to do. So you can completely change how the rapid board looks and feels. Now these quick filters just have a little bit of JQL built into them. So you can see we have the assignee equals Joseph. So by clicking on that button, it's going to hide every ticket except for the ones that are assigned to Joseph. And similarly, I can do the same thing with me. We can make these whatever we want them to be. So recently updated is going to be tickets that have been modified in the last day. And these can be absolutely anything. It's very generic. So the whole idea of the rapid board is everything is driven by JQL, that query language, so that you can set it up to act exactly the way that you want it to act for whatever makes sense for you. Just very quickly looking at the configuration, just to give you an idea of how the board is set up and what it all means. I'm just going to show you how these columns map to the workflow. We'll see how this one is set up, but you can have multiple statuses. So multiple states of your workflow can share an individual column, and you can move to each of those states. Right. So in this case, you just see we just have open. Let's put in progress in here and reopened here. These are all the different states that are available to me in this particular project's workflow. I keep saying in this particular project, but the rapid board doesn't have to be limited to an individual project. You can actually have multiple different workflows, multiple projects. All of those can be in the same rapid board. But here we're calling our definition of done is any ticket that's closed. Our definition of ready for review is any ticket that's either in progress or resolved. And our definition of to do, so our backlog, is tickets that are either open or reopened. So when I go back to our rapid board, you'll see when I try to drag a ticket from one column to another, it's going to ask me which of the two statuses do I want to change it to. Do we have other questions? All right. Well, we must not have our workflow mapped exactly, but in the best of situations, holding this over ready for review would have asked me if I want to put it into in progress or resolved. This is one of those cases where you have to match your workflow to the board itself. It's actually another nice new feature that allows you to simplify your workflow so that you just get a one-to-one JIRA workflow that maps exactly to your columns. So if you add a new column, it automatically adds a new status, and then each column just has that one status in it. It's a quick and easy thing to set up, though, and there's a lot more stuff. We'll do another webinar just on the rapid board.
All right, so the next question comes from Tom. What kinds of limits are there on workflows? Can I have a portfolio of workflows, example given, for a software development process that I can readily tailor for each project?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. The workflow engine is very generic. You can add as many statuses and as many transitions between those statuses as you want. I think the largest one that we've ever seen was it's something like 200 individual steps through the workflow. It's just massive. I wouldn't recommend that you have that complex one, but you can have a workflow that branches off and follows different paths. And then just depending on exactly what you're trying to implement, there are a number of different ways to do it. So it's kind of part of our discovery process that we do with our clients is we sit down with them and figure out, what are you actually trying to do? And then we figure out how that best maps into JIRA. So the workflow engine itself is generic enough to allow you to have branching complex workflows that go off in a number of different directions. Within an individual project, you have a project and an issue type, and that's really decides what workflow it goes through. So you create the workflow and you associate it back to a particular issue type in a particular project. So you can reuse the same workflow over and over again for multiple issue types and across multiple projects, or you can have a different workflow for every single issue type in every single project if you want, and then everything in between.
Maybe you can talk to some of the benefits of that so you can standardize across team and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually true of kind of all of the schema that configures a project within JIRA, but the permission scheme, the notification scheme, the workflows, the screens, so the actual metrics that pop up when you create a new ticket or move through the workflow. All of that is created as its own standalone schema, and then we associate that to a project. So we can make one set of schema, one set of workflows, one set of screens, one set of permissions, and then associate that to a number of different projects. So if you have if you have a number of software development teams and they all operate the same way, but they work in different projects, you only have to make that schema once, and then you just associate that to all the different projects you have, and now everybody works in exactly the same way. And then similarly, if you update your workflows, then that change automatically disseminates to all of the projects that use that. So you only have to make the change once.
Cool, great. Get another question here from Alfonso. If using a sprint will resolve, if using a sprint will be resolved, and moved to the next sprint, or will it be considered complete?
Right. So I only showed you, this is the Kanban version of the Rapid board. There's also a Scrum version of the Rapid board, and there's kind of a DIY one as well. But in the Scrum board, you would have a prioritized backlog that are all of your tickets that are not completed, basically that have not been released in some version. And when you set up your sprints, you have a marker that you'll drag. I'm not sure that this example is set up very well, so this may or may not work for us. I think I just selected the board we were already on too. But so you'll set up each of your sprints just by dragging this marker down. And then as you work the sprint, when you get to the end of it and you release it, any uncompleted issues that are in that particular sprint are automatically going to be added to the next sprint. And if you don't have any other sprints, they just get put back into the backlog. Let's just see if we have any issues in here. We won't actually work through the example. I'll just show you what the planning mode looks like. So here we have a number of different sprints. You can see we're currently working on this one right here. And of the 12 issues that are in there, 11 of them are complete. So if we were to go and release this sprint right now, I'm sorry, there's 11 story points that are done, 11 still remaining. So if we'd go and release this sprint right now, these other 11 story points, all of those issues, would get pushed into this next sprint here. And then similarly, when we release this one, it'll get pushed into the next sprint and so on. Any other questions?
There's no more questions at this point.
Okay.
And this actually brings us up to about the end of our call. So I just want to thank everybody for participating. We hope you got some good takeaways from this. As always, if you need to get a hold of us, you can contact us through our website, praecipio.com. We're also on Twitter, and it's Praecipio. Last but not least, we look forward to the February webinar. It's February 6th, I believe. And thanks so much. Y'all have a good one.